In this video, we will continue learning from reflection. More specifically, we will learn how you transform mental models into a conceptual framework. Both mental models and conceptual frameworks are ways of thinking that influence our actions. But mental models are unconscious, often contain contradictions, and lead to repetitive thoughts and behaviors. In contrast, a conceptual framework is conscious and can be explained logically, is coherent with scientific evidence and moral principles, and is evolving. We can modify it. Going into more detail, as we said, a mental model is a way of thinking that influences our actions. However, it is unconscious. We are unaware of the assumptions on which it is based because we absorb them from our environment during our childhood. We absorb beliefs from our family, our schoolmates, or our community, but we did not analyze them and we could not vocalize them if someone asked us what they are. Because of that, our mental models often contain contradictions. Sometimes there are contradictions within the model itself, and at times there are contradictions with other mental models. An example could be a science teacher who in the schoolroom teaches evolution, but in his religious community affirms that human beings were created instantaneously. Because of the fact that they are unconscious and that they do not evolve when we acquire new knowledge, mental models are static. We tend to have the same thoughts and continue with the same behaviors. In contrast, a conceptual framework, although it is also a way of thinking that influences our actions, is conscious and can be explained logically. If someone asks us, "What is your conceptual framework about this?" we can explain it to them briefly and clearly. Conceptual frameworks are also coherent with moral principles, scientific evidence, and with other conceptual frameworks that we have. And conceptual frameworks are evolving. As we acquire new information, they can be improved. So how does this happen? When we acquire new information, we compare it with our conceptual framework. We analyze the new information using scientific evidence and universal principles. This will either lead us to accept the new information or to reject it. If we reject it, we are able to explain why. And there is no change in our conceptual framework. If we accept it, it may modify our conceptual framework in different ways. It may simply support it, but not lead to any changes. In that case, it might consist of interesting details or examples that we could use when we are explaining the framework. At times, it broadens our understanding. An example can be the conceptual framework of transformative leadership that originally only had 5 elements, but later we added the element of a conviction of the essential nobility of human beings. Why? Because we had noticed in our workshops that at times it was hard for people to accept transformative leadership because they thought that it was too utopian. And we felt that first we had to delve into the essential nobility of human beings so that transformative leadership became a real possibility. Finally, although very rarely, sometimes we acquire new information that completely revolutionizes the way we think. How can we help others transform mental models into a conceptual framework? We begin by helping them to identify typical mental models. In a workshop, we could ask them, "What do most people believe about this?" We use the question, "What do most people believe?" rather than "What do you believe?" so that people do not overly identify with the model. Then we go on to questioning the mental models, analyzing their effects and their coherence with scientific truth. At times, this creates a type of existential crisis in which the participants feel, if what I always believed to be true is not, then what? And so they are open to accepting the elements of a coherent conceptual framework when we present it. But it is not enough to just present the framework. We also need to carry out activities to consolidate the understanding of each element of this conceptual framework. In brief, what we have learned in the last two videos are two ways of using the capability of learning from reflection on action. The first is by asking questions about our experiences, which lead us to conclusions about improvements we can make, and then to apply those ideas the next time we do something similar. The second is, after identifying and questioning mental models, we can formulate a conscious conceptual framework with elements that are coherent with universal principles and scientific evidence. I hope you've enjoyed these two videos and that what you've studied helps you in your efforts to learn from reflection. Thank you.